Philip Khoury is an award-winning pastry chef, author and pioneer in plant-based patisserie. For the past 6 years, he has served as head pastry chef at Harrods London, where he redefined modern pastry through his innovative approach to flavour, sustainability and technique. Philip began his career at Quay, one of Australia's most celebrated restaurants, before rising to prominence under Adriano Zumbo, the renowned Netflix and MasterChef Australia star. His work has been featured in The Guardian, The Times and BBC Good Food. Most recently, Philip launched Khoury's, a luxury plant-based confectionery brand that reflects his signature creativity and craftsmanship. In our conversation, we dive into his journey of building a brand with purpose, the intersection of business and artistry, and why staying personal is so important in today's evolving food space. Phil, welcome to the Hospo Dojo podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an amazing journey for me to get you here.
Well, being based in London doesn't help.
No, 100%. No, I'm only kidding. But I've admired your work for some time, and especially seeing a fellow Australian being able to travel, work internationally, gain recognition. For me, it's a proud moment. You see a fellow Aussie on the other side of the world, and you're like, "Yes, this is what you want to see." Right?
Thanks. That's very kind.
And yeah, I'm proud of you, bro. That's the first thing I want to say. I'm really proud of you, and you've really, shown people that it is possible. And today, I just want to unpack that.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for those very kind words.
So, Phil, you're born and raised in Australia, yeah. Lebanese heritage.
That's right, not far from here.
What's your favourite? I'm Jordanian, so what's your favourite Lebanese dish? It's quick fire. Controversy.
I make hummus on a weekly basis.
Okay.
I love tabbouleh.
Yeah.
Just the classics.
So one dish. What's your favourite?
Hummus.
Hummus? Yeah. Do you do variations?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your favourite variation?
Variations with toppings.
Yeah.
It's actually pine nuts and mushrooms.
Ooh.
Yeah. Obviously with the baharat and all the spices, but definitely.
You know what? I actually consulted a company called Fable Foods.
Okay. Oh, the
mushrooms.
Mushrooms.
Yeah. I reckon that would be phenomenal because it's that shiitake mushroom.
Yeah, with the
it's got that pulled texture.
That would be nice, yeah.
Fable, let's send Phil someone who can make you some hummus.
Are they UK based as well?
No, they're Australian based.
Oh, brilliant.
They're Australian based, and they've just launched in the US. They're doing really well. So proud of them too. But yeah, I think that would be a kicker. Oh, there you go. Phil just gave you guys a recipe idea. I'll get the marketing team to send you a box. But so yeah, hummus with mushrooms and pine nuts.
Yeah,
nice.
Just with some Lebanese bread to mop
dip,
it up. Yeah.
Beautiful. And where'd you grow up in Sydney? What's your sort of story?
So I grew up
in Sydney. I assumed. Sorry,
near Carlingford.
Okay.
And I went to school in North Parramatta. Graduated from my final 2 years of high school at Morris Brothers in Parramatta.
The Lebanese dream.
Yeah. And up until that point, I then went on to do a communications design degree.
Okay.
And thought that that's everything that I wanted to do. Did that at Western Sydney, and loved
Parramatta?
it. Yeah.
What year?
That was actually in Penrith.
Okay.
Loved it. Had amazing internships. One at Naked Communications, then at Interbrand, and I really thought that's everything that I wanted to do. But that whole time, I'd been really passionate about baking, but only thought it was a hobby. Mm-hmm. Then I made friends with some pastry chefs and realized, hang on, this is actually something you can do for work. And I think I was 21 when I started the apprenticeship, so 15 years ago. I felt like I was quite old for my class because everyone starts an apprenticeship between 15 and 18. And so I dove headfirst in, felt like I was making up for lost time. I remember starting my first job at Quay restaurant, and it's like I vanished off the face of the earth for about a year.
Just went into a silo.
Immersed myself, and I mean that kind of happened for the next 7 years until I went to Harrods. So I was at Quay for a year before I was unceremoniously fired, and then Shangri-La with Anna Polivu, then Zumbo, and then Harrods came calling.
Wow, that's and what I really what enlightened me about your story is that mature age change.
Yes.
You're not mature, but in the context of an apprenticeship, you went in as anyone in that room would consider you a mature age student.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
It's like going to uni and like when you were doing your communications degree and someone that was 30 years old came and did your first year subject.
I was 21. I was old. I was definitely like the oldest in the class.
Right.
Yeah.
So you felt that sense of, there's a lot of people that are younger than me in here, but again,
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to Lauren Eldridge about this. We did a pop-up over the weekend, and she kind of came from a similar place because I think she was almost finished or halfway through a psychology degree and then started an apprenticeship like me at the same time in fine dining. And I think both of us being mature actually helped us progress a bit faster than I guess normal, because people expected more of us and we were like so committed to the task, and it just helped us get ahead a bit faster.
I guess you have different priorities at that time.
Yeah.
And you think that time is against you as well.
Yes.
So if I look at it in that perspective, whenever I've had somebody that's come to me for help that's in that transition phase, they tend to dominate. Because for them, this is all that I have.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm giving up X to go in for Y, and this is everything.
It's funny because literally you go from quite a defined career path to starting from scratch, throwing. It came in very useful, a few years later, but throwing away the degree that you've just kind of finished, and then, basically starting at the bottom on little to no money, and it's like that for a while.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an adjustment for sure.
And how'd you cope with that?
I've been lucky that I had support around me, because at 21 earning half the minimum wage is not feasible for a lot of people. So I guess I was definitely in a position of privilege to be able to to go through those early years with basically nothing.
So you found your parents and your support network at the time,
definitely.
they really dug deep and was like, go chase
Parents,
it.
partners,
Yeah, amazing. That's beautiful. And what was that moment during pastry that you found that, this is it?
Literally, my first day of class, I turned up, we put on our uniforms. In pastry, you always start with one of the pastry basics, choux pastry, puff pastry, pâte sucrée, all these kinds of things. And I remember our first day we were doing choux pastry, and I was like, this is it. This is where I'm meant to be.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, and a lot of chefs that start in their earlier phases find that aha moment at around your age that you started. They go through the trough and they really, get their toes in, and then they go like, oh, this dish is the one for me. But the minute that you walked in and you were able to put your Superman cape on, basically, which was your chef jacket, you're like, okay, now I feel this is where I belong.
There was something that really appealed to me in the technical way that you study something in school. And when you're baking at home and you're reading books and you're trying to learn, these days we have a lot more content on YouTube and social media. But at the time you only had books to read from, and so to be able to practically apply that and have an expert explain to you what you were doing and why you were doing it was like a complete revelation for me.
And when you were working with Anna and Adriano, who I both deeply, deeply respect, they're both amazing human beings, and always seem to, whenever we cross paths, they always find time for me, which is, with their busy schedules. What's one thing you learned from Anna, and what's one thing you learned from Adrian? Adriano, sorry.
Anna really set a great example for going above and beyond. There are so many things, like the lesson that I learned there was initiative will take you really, really far. No one is going to hand you the perfect opportunity or the perfect brief or the perfect product to develop that's going to, win you acclaim. Like, it just doesn't happen. It has to come from within, and you have to really fight for what you believe in and what makes you happy. And then, so that, and what's core to that is initiative. And from Adriano Zumbo, to date, the most fun job that I ever had I was about 3 or 4 months in working for him. I was mid-level demi-chef, and he kind of just, I was preparing for 2 competitions. I think he saw my work and just plucked me out of the kitchen and said, "You're going to help me with research and development." And yeah, so like I jumped straight into just testing, developing things for the TV shows, for the menus, and then ended up running research and development for the whole business across all the categories that we were doing. So everything from bakery, pastry, macarons, chocolate and confectionery, pâtisserie. So it was just the most expansive education that I could have ever dreamed of.
Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite cake to date, and I say this publicly, is the V8.
Oh yeah. You can't beat it.
It's honestly
incredible.
it's honestly the best cake in the world.
It's so good.
I've traveled, and you can tell by the size of me, I've tried different things. But that V8, I've invested in my palate, and that V8 cake is probably. And then I tried the V8 diesel. I liked it, but it still wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was the first time locally that we'd ever seen that much vanilla in something, and vanilla is one of those things that gets so widely imitated in terms of flavorings, extracts, to use the real thing in the amount that he was using, and that to get that purity of flavor and dimension, it was incredible.
Well, if you ever decide to push him to recreate it, please bring it back. Whenever he's told me he'll commission it if I come up to the Sunshine Coast, and I said okay.
Do it.
I said I have to visit him. So Adriano, you moved on to Harrods.
Yeah.
And did they come and cherry pick you, or how'd you go about that?
It was just one of those, like, I always say that the minute I started following my heart, the stars just kept aligning. And I remember finishing up at Zumbo and wanting to travel. And I was visiting London for over the summer, 1 year. Basically, I'd finished at Zumbo, did this rugby tournament in Amsterdam.
You played rugby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Came back to...
That's a little side quest. Hey?
Yeah. And then went to...
Union or league?
Union.
Okay.
Went to London, and then Kirsten Tibbles, who's been a long-time mentor of mine, was like, "Oh, Harrods is reinvigorating their pastry program, and they're redoing all the food halls. Go in and have a visit." She lined up a meeting. I went with Mark McDonald, who works at Mayer's Fine Foods. We met Alistair Burt, who would eventually become my boss. And he showed me around. It was incredible. It was the closest thing that I'd seen in the wild to Zumbo, which is a very rare set of operating conditions. And 2 weeks later, they said, I got a message saying, "Hey, our sous chef's just resigned. Would you consider coming over?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And
Crazy.
the thing I always told people, like, as a manager of, I think we had 60 people in the pastry team, pastry and bakery team. As you mentor young pastry chefs, you're always talking about progression and giving them advice and coaching them through their career. And I always say it's half of it is timing, and the rest is just putting yourself in the right position so that when that opportunity comes up, you're the best pick. But yeah, definitely timing was on my side.
And timing is one thing, definitely, but you studied comms.
Yeah.
Which also helped, I believe, because traditionally, chefs are known to be introverted. Creative, introverted, they don't really communicate, and they don't have the opportunity to be able to communicate with many people at a time. They're only communicating within most times. You're rocking up to work, you're working 60 hours a week. How do you have time to network?
Yeah.
How do you have time to build relationships, right? So if there's a young chef who's going through their apprenticeship at the moment, and I truly believe that the leap to growth is always, for me anyway, your network is your net worth, and I strongly believe on that. And you will be opened up to opportunities if you can network well. But also, you have to deliver on your network too. No one's just going to say, "Hey, here you go," and hand you something. You got to obviously prove your worth to them as well. So, as a chef and as a seasoned chef, what's one piece of advice you'd give to, or how can a chef work on their networking skills in this space?
Don't be shy to message or reach out to people you admire. I think you'd be surprised how open and willing a lot of people are to sharing advice or knowledge or experience. And for me, I always wanted to work in the best places. And the great thing about an apprenticeship is that you have that opportunity and a bit of flexibility. No one's going to judge you if you do something wrong. And the way I got most of my jobs was just by knocking on the back door, sending a DM. And yeah, it started with, I remember not wanting to work in restaurants. When I went into pastry, I was like, I want to be like a pâtissier. This is the most rounded type of pastry chef that you can be. And I said, if I'm going to work in a restaurant, it's going to be the best restaurant that I can find. And Quay was that. And I literally just walked up to the back door. I saw where the staff would come out, knocked on the door and was like, can I talk to the head chef? And he's like, yeah, actually, we might have an apprenticeship opportunity coming up in a few months. And then it turned out to be like a couple of weeks.
And then it comes a couple of days, yeah.
I think I was the only apprentice at the time. But it just came from me knocking on the door. And the same thing, sending a message to Anna. And she was like, yeah, we actually have an opportunity coming up. Here's the link for the application. And yeah, it just pays to be a bit proactive, take a bit of initiative. Again, these opportunities don't just come out. You have to seek them. And yeah, and another piece of advice I always say is same opportunities exist for everyone. Some people will reach out and take them, and others just kind of stick to themselves and be quiet. And unfortunately, they get less opportunities.
And I find that there is an art to, well, not so much an art, but there's a layer of confidence that you need to have to be able to approach someone, right? And it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, in my opinion.
Okay.
So, of course, you know that there is going to be pain at that point of ripping the Band-Aid off. But once it's off, it's off.
What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Someone doesn't reply.
You just go again.
You go to the next one.
Right? And for me anyway, people have this notion that, if somebody's got a blue tick or they've got over 50 or 100,000 followers on Instagram, they don't check their DMs. I can assure you, Phil here reads every single DM, and so do I. So it's as simple as just literally sending a message and just explaining who you are, what you want to do, and why. The biggest thing is, if you show your purpose,
show your passion.
People,
a simple hi isn't going to cut it.
No, yeah, it's just like, hey, give me a job. I get so many people messaging me, hi, do you have a job? And I'm like, what job?
Please tell me more about you.
Exactly, But then I've had people literally walk in our office and be like, hey, I love what you do. Do you have time? I'd love to learn off you, or I've got this skill that I really think that you could benefit from. There'd be no reason why I'd shut down that conversation, because at the same time, we came from places where we were given opportunity, or we had opportunities present themselves. We took them and we learned from them, vice versa, right? You do want to mentor people. You do want to grow people. And in Harrods, so you had a team of what, 60?
Yeah, so at its biggest, 60 pastry chefs and bakers.
And what were you doing?
So Harrods is interesting. Harrods is the world's most luxurious department store. Have apparently the largest food and beverage operation in the Northern Hemisphere, contained within a building. So if you think of, I'll just run through it. We had 27 restaurants within the building, and nearly all of them got their pastries from our kitchen. So whether it was the croissants or components for desserts in a plated dessert, it all came from one place.
So for every venue, you were running the pastry program?
Essentially.
27 restaurants, they were completely individual.
So it's a fascinating thing, and it's very rare. But yes, we would. Some, like for example, Bjorn Fransen opened a restaurant a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and they did run their pastry independently, but that was like the exception. So for the vast majority, and we do have concessions, but I think when I was there, it was maybe a 60-70% own bought and 30-40% concession. Wow. So the concessions are less inclined, but they would still order things from us. And then the rest is own bought. And the majority of that, by the way, the majority of our output was actually for the food halls. So I think we were roughly 70% just for retail. So you come in, you see the amazing food halls with all the food everywhere, and the beautiful patisserie counters, the chocolate counters, the bakery counters. That was all made in-house by our team.
That's phenomenal. And do you feel that
literally under the food halls?
Yeah,
that's two floors down.
2 floors down. I wish I came and visited.
And the kitchen was probably only twice the size of your office. It was not this huge, space. It was. I think a lot of people were surprised when they're like, "Hang on, you do all this stuff from here?"
Well, London and Sydney have a very similar problem. Space costs a lot of money.
Absolutely.
We don't have the luxury of the US, and I say this to all my US clients.
And you know what? A big kitchen is not always a good thing. Like that's more time running around, more time, going from the dry store to the weighing room to the whatever. And so I prefer small kitchens actually.
It's more efficient.
Yeah.
You want everything within arm's reach. I always say it, and it's a purpose-built facility. And volume, when you have the right setup, you can produce volume. And if when the busy seasons come, obviously you need a plan for that. The only thing that you could get caught out on really is storage.
Always storage.
That's it. So, but then that comes down to your supply chain optimization. Can you increase the flow of your deliveries?
Yeah.
Right. And
warehousing, we relied on that. We had our dry stores, but we had a huge warehouse facility, one on site and one off site, that everything would come to in pallets, and then we would call off bits of stock that we needed as we needed it, essentially, because we couldn't store more than 2 or 3 days worth of flour in our store, and we were going through about a pallet every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. I think the thing that was very unique about Harrods and about Zumbo was that both of them, I always say there's 3 things in a production environment that determine how the place works. It's the quality, obvious, quantity, or the volume, and the range. So if you're doing lots of different products, you might be doing smaller volume if you want to keep up the quality, or if you're... So anyway, there's those 3 factors, and they're always pushed up in different things. If you're
you keep going with that, because it's really good.
Because if you're doing volume, you might only be doing a limited number of products, but you're pumping out volume, and the quality might be lower, for example. But at Zumbo and Harrods, and this is, I think, why they were both quite unique in the world and why one was a natural progression to the other, is that all of them are pushed to the limits. You've got super high quality as a priority, huge volume of product, and what's the other one? Range. We were doing like 200 different items every day leaving the kitchen. Some would be 500 pieces, some might be 20, but it's just like everything is just, yeah.
But now you've pivoted into your own journey.
Yes.
And now you're doing a couple items.
Yeah.
If not one item.
Yeah, so it's quite a change. In February, I left Harrods after 6 years and started my own company. And it was for me the warm-up to what I want to do next, and that's what I'm doing in 2026. But yeah, started a company named after myself called Khoury's, and we focus on chocolate and confectionery.
And
for now.
And your famous piece of chocolate is that beautiful Beirut-looking slab, the homage to Beirut there.
Yeah. So how that came about is in January of this year. We were doing a charity bake sale, and it wasn't even like my focus. I was doing a pear trifle inspired by the preserved pears that they'd prepare in my dad's village in Lebanon. And someone asked me, "Oh, can you do some Dubai chocolate?" And I was like, "Why would I make a copy of something that already exists that someone else has made?" So I was like, "No, I'll do a Beirut chocolate." And it was a one-off. I did 100 pieces, but I went a bit hard. I developed its own mold. We were making, a baklava crunch, a baklava crunch with an orange blossom caramel, and it probably didn't have to be so good and so well packaged for something that was just one-off. But I posted this really rough video online, and it just went completely viral across the Middle East. I think there was 1 week where I just had like requests from every morning show on every channel in the Middle East, from Dubai to Saudi to Qatar and Kuwait, wanting to talk about Beirut chocolate. And they were like pitching it as like, is this the new Dubai chocolate? And it was a really funny period.
And what do you think really sets that tone for that virality, like the Dubai chocolate?
Honestly, I could not predict it.
Not a prediction, but what's the foundational Like, why did that chocolate work, from your opinion?
I think it's familiarity. I just launched the Sydney chocolate bar this week based on avocado and toast. And it's a really interesting, delicious tasting bar. But I think no one wants to have avocado toast in a chocolate.
Right.
Whereas baklava and chocolate is not too much of a stretch. It hits those nostalgic notes. The presentation is stunning. And I think it's a combination of things.
And do you find that, you know, in your company now during this phase, where are you finding where most of your focus is going at the moment?
Product development. We're doing one new flavor every month. And so while we only have one format and one type of packaging, it's quite a lot of work to pump out a new flavor. And we're a very small team, you know, we're 4 people in the whole company. So I lead product development and business admin and training. And then we have a team of 3 amazing pastry chefs who are just picking up the development and running with it.
And are you keeping those products on each month? So you develop a product, you sustain it?
Trying to figure out what our limit is in terms of storage, but the idea is to have around 4 flavors. One will always be new, one will always be Beirut, one will always be London, and then one that just comes back. So Sydney will leave to make space for the flavor of next month.
Well, and you know, for you during this process, what's been the biggest challenge setting up your own company?
There were definitely things that I was not prepared for. Early on storage, but I'm really lucky that we're in a facility where there's lots of different units and probably 75 commercial units, and we are able to like flex and grow into others until we figure out exactly what we need. So we've got like a storage space. We might take on another space. But I think the hardest thing is business operations. You know, like I have extensive experience by now doing day-to-day operations, but I don't have experience beyond planning a budget and implementing financial control. Like it's, you know, I can cost a recipe, I can budget for equipment, budget for labor, ingredients, all the cogs and everything, but it's a different thing to actually manage those finances.
And have you learned to deal with those things?
Well, after 3 months, I was like, I need a really experienced accountant. So it's all outsourced now. But that was definitely the learning curve. And even, you know, marketing, we had a really phenomenal first month. And then as soon as my new book has come out, my focus just shifted, and I forgot to even talk about what we're doing, which meanwhile that's still ticking along, and we had a drop in sales. So it's just like, oh shit, you know, just remembering all the different things that you have to be across.
Yeah, I guess when you're going down this journey of entrepreneurship, where you're in this space,
and juggling all these hats.
Yeah, but it's really important to know where your strong points are, and you might find along the journey that, okay, I can't afford somebody to manage X. If I was to manage it, I could save money. That's the sort of perception.
Yes.
The problem with that is that person that you're paying X for has probably done 10,000 hours plus in that field, like you have done with pastry. So if you're okay with burning your time to try work it out, then it's okay. But if time is not up your sleeve, then as an entrepreneur, you need to find that money to do it. Like you did with the accounts. You started doing it, and then you're like, hold on, right? You know, accountant,
it's a waste of my time.
It's a waste of my time, exactly. And, you know, any high performers in any business world, their biggest value is time. And they always budget it down to how long is this going to take me and where I need to put my time and where I need to put my energy. And I think for you, especially in your growth phase now, you need to protect your time as much as you can. It's super important because that's going to allow you to keep being present, keep traveling, keep with the research and development and coming up with that creative ideas. So what I always do with with any of my clients is I just map out, like, you know, we get a nice big paper and we write down all the tasks that you'd be doing personally, because no two businesses are the same. Mm-hmm. Sure, you have the similar fundamentals, but just write them out. And when you write them out, you start circling the ones that you like doing and start writing crosses on the ones that you don't like doing. That's the easiest way to figure out.
That's good advice.
It's the easiest way to figure out, like, I actually enjoy doing this and I don't. Like, for example, I personally enjoy paying all my stakeholders. It's not that I don't want my bookkeepers to do it. I feel like, hey, Ben did great work for me this week. This is his remuneration. That's just my way of saying, yes, I'm accepting the transaction and I'm doing it. That's something that I still keep on doing. And it's just to make sure I'm in touch, and I never want somebody else to be left out financially. But there's a whole piece of for example, my ads. I like it, but I'm not good at it. So what do? I get my ads guy to manage the ads because he knows it really well. And if I tried learning it, I'd be lost in time, lost in so much time and energy. Yeah. But what's really important along this entire line is when anyone's doing a task for you, though, during your growth phase, is you need to work out certain e-markers. So, work out top 3 or 4 e-markers that will tell you, where that task is at, so you can keep track of it. Because micromanaging people also becomes an issue. Mm-hmm. So you've managed a lot of people a lot of times, but when you go in the business admin side, it's like it's a different level of thing. It's no longer just output. It's like task driven or paperwork or accounting or finance. So yeah, just do that A3 paper. You'll thank me. You'll go, oh yeah, no, this fills time. Yes. Yep. And that's what I always found that works for my clients anyway. But yeah, that's on that end. So do you have your new book, what is that?
So while I was at Harrods, I got special permission to write a book. And
you had to ask for permission?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think I was the first person to ever do anything like that. And, when you work in a big company like that, a big brand, they're very protective of their image, of their output and their IP. So, for example, maybe people don't know this, but whenever you join a major employer, any IP that you generate automatically becomes their property. So in order to sell my IP to a publisher, I have to get basically a permission to do that. And so I'm really passionate about, I'm a classically trained pastry chef. While I was at Harrods, I was doing everything. But around 8 years ago, I had a conversation with someone when they asked me, what about vegan pastry? And I was like, it's impossible. Everything we make relies on eggs and dairy. And just saying that made me question if that had to be the case. And I think when you spend as long in the industry as, the longer you spend in the industry and the more you see how ingredients are made and where they come from, for me it was a case of realizing that, hang on, we have an over-reliance on some ingredients, and there's a lot of other ingredients that we're not actually fully utilizing. And so and also I wasn't happy with the direction, as I did some research into vegan baking. I wasn't happy with the approach that was being taken, which is to basically find substitutes for ingredients in the recipes that exist. And so my whole shtick is that we have a lot of ingredients that we're not fully utilizing. We just need to create new recipes and frameworks for them to shine. So I always talk about, for example, a pound cake. A pound cake is a classic ratio of, a pound of flour, a pound of eggs, butter, sugar. And when flour is hydrated with a liquid, it gels. When that liquid is eggs also gel. So you need all of that fat to actually create a nice tender cake. And so when you just say, take out the eggs, because eggs are not, we end up hydrating the flour with, say, water or milk, and there's a whole lot of there's a whole lot less gelling that's happening, and as a result, you need to reduce the fat by up to 60% to allow the flour to do its thing.
Work. Yeah.
So it's just about rebalancing things, and I have a rule in my work that I don't want to use ingredients or rely on ingredients that are new or novel. So I focus on things that we've had for at least 150 years, and just expand our boundaries and horizons for what's possible in in sweets and patisserie.
What's the most underused ingredient?
Flour, 100%. I struggle with gluten-free. I can do it, but I just find it so useful as an ingredient, and it can do so much that, flour. We think eggs need to do all this stuff, but really flour can do an amazing amount of stuff too.
Is there any particular flour that's underutilized?
No, just, the number one that I use is just a plain flour. Around the 10.5% protein mark, and just it doesn't have to be any specific fancy brand. I think, and the reason for this is that I've seen the way that we've shifted and agriculture and farming to rely on these products. The average chicken, for example, used to lay, I think it was 60 eggs a year. Now they lay 1 egg per day, which is around 350 eggs. And that's because we've bred them to do that. And they live in pretty horrible conditions and all the rest of it. I don't need to go into it. And cows, for example, I love butter, but you have to milk a cow for a day to get the 20 liters of milk to get 250 grams of butter, which only makes 8 croissants. But you can order it from your supplier, or you can go to the supermarket and pick up a block. And I think when you become disconnected from the process of how that ingredient was produced, it just spawns an unsustainable practice. So for me, it's just about expanding the horizons. And now we make them with olive oil. But we would have problems if we were making all croissants with olive oil too, because then we'd have an over-reliance on olive oil and olive oil farming and, monocultures and all the rest of it. So it was really important to, just broaden our horizons and give people more options. And I really believe that you can't preach to someone and tell them that this is how you should do things. You just have to give them good options, and they can make their own mind up.
And how can someone, when you're in that business environment like Harrods, how can you drive sustainability in that environment?
Yeah, so for example, for me, it was through developing plant-based recipes. So when you make an apple pie that's plant-based, the carbon footprint, even if the olive oil was imported, is half that of using butter because of all the steps and reduction that you get to make butter. And so that's like the easiest way, is to just have more plant-based options. And in a place like Harrods, which is so tradition-bound, I didn't set out to make vegan pastries. I just set out to make great pastries that happen to be vegan. And so in a place like that, the only thing I could do was just develop a great apple pie that happened to be vegan, and people would taste it in our tasting sessions, and it would go down well. And all of a sudden we have an apple pie on the menu that's plant-based. But there were other things. It was mainly patisserie. But
it makes it sound so simple, guys.
It's just about making the options so compelling and so good that no one bats an eyelid.
Yeah, it's not like you have to overmarket that it's vegan.
No, you know what? Well, we learned a very hard lesson early on. Our first product launch was like a tropical mousse dessert. And the buyer wanted to put vegan something because it was trendy to have vegan options. And it did not sell because the vast majority of people are not interested in vegan things. But in that first week, we took it out of the title and just put it as at the end of the description in brackets. And the next thing, it's the top seller, and it's been on the menu for 7 years. So it's just like, make it good, focus on what's good about it and not on other things, because the vegans will find it.
Yep.
Everyone else just needs to buy a nice piece of cake.
I totally agree with you on that. I find that, focusing on such a, when you're hyper-focused on communication with certain specifics, it tends to ice you out, and it sort of puts you in a niche category.
Yeah.
Where if you just say this is a beautiful passion fruit slice, for example, if I feel like passion fruit, you feel like passion fruit's in season.
You'll try it.
We're buying a passion fruit slice.
Yeah.
No matter, and then once I'm taking the first bite, it's like, oh, this is actually vegan. Oh, this is actually gluten-free. Oh, wow, this is, this has no nuts in it, for example. And then all of a sudden, it plays against that. It plays against that card of, well, hold on, this is now acceptable to a lot more people.
Definitely.
So reframing that, I find, is
and that's probably where the communications degree comes in handy.
100%.
I think the motivation is different as well. Like for a lot of people, developing things that were vegan was not out of choice. They did it because they either were vegan or they had intolerances, and so they're developing it from a framework of trying to make the most of what they have available to them, and maybe they're not professionals. So for me, it was just about expanding horizons and finding new ways to do things. It was almost a professional challenge at first. And, I'm not technically vegan. I'm maybe 95%, depending on the time of year, because I still insist on trying things that are not. I don't cook meat at home, for example, but if it's at a tasting or if I'm invited somewhere, I'll be eating it. And I just want to keep my frame of reference open and up to date. And I think hopefully I'm serving the vegans well anyway. So
Yeah, you definitely. I believe you are, and I see that you're doing it in a different way. And one study that I looked into was the strength of the veto vote.
Mm-hmm.
So the veto vote is generally in a group of people. You might have one person that's positioned as a minority in the group. Someone that's got if we're going out to eat and someone's anaphylactic, for example, but there's a group of 5 of us, and we're going to go to eat. If that place that we're going to go to eat is going to trigger their anaphylaxis, well, all 5 of us aren't going. So one of my really good friends, Dan, who's a great chef in Sydney, always told me that he focuses so much on the vegetarian and vegan options on his menu and makes them taste, he puts so much time and energy into those dishes so that anyone could eat them and anybody could enjoy them. But at the same time, it really controls that veto vote because, as a group, when you go to eat, especially in Australia, you're not going alone. It's not like we have a Japanese culture where we'll just go eat out by ourselves and keep going.
Yeah.
It's generally in a group environment. And I find that businesses don't focus enough on those things and just push things to the side where they're just focusing on the mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
You need to offer it. You don't need to scream it. But like you said, the vegans, the vegetarians, the pescatarians, they'll find their way.
You'd be surprised. We have in the UK, one of the largest consumer groups is vegetarians. And if you say you're vegetarian, technically you won't be having gelatin. And even if you're okay with gelatin, as soon as you say that to a member of staff at Harrods, they will, it's a black and white thing. They will put the thing on the iPad and then all these things are cut out and you can't have these things. And there's no discussion about, are you okay with fish gelatin or this or that? It's just, no, all of a sudden their options got a lot smaller. And so it's just about keeping that in mind and developing more options for people. And I think what was really interesting, I've forgotten where I'm going with that. Anyway.
Well, that's okay. You don't have to worry about that too much. If we'll tie this up for you. If there's someone that's listening to this podcast right now who is about to do a step change in their career and want to open their own business, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Go and work somewhere as similar as you can. I remember when I first started saying to my dad, I want to go and open a crepe restaurant. And he's like, why would you do that? You've never had a job in a cafe. You've never done anything. Like, why would any investor put any money behind you? And then I literally went and got a job in Max Brenner and then a cafe. And you have to get experience and you have to start somewhere. I think I have seen people who dive into it and learn the hard way. But in my experience and from my perspective, just starting out in the field is really important, and just getting any job and not being afraid to knock on big doors is really important.
Yeah, especially if you want to open something specific.
Yeah.
Go work somewhere that you aspire to be like, if not better.
Yeah.
You can learn the systems and the operations there. See what they're doing wrong. See what you'll change. It's not.
One of the biggest lessons of my career has been you learn more from seeing how things shouldn't be done than necessarily seeing the right way to do things. It's
That's a great perspective, and I preach the same values. Now we are going to go to our quick fire.
Oh shit! I'm not good with this stuff.
That's okay. So we're wrapping up with Phil Khoury in 60 seconds. These are quick questions, 1-line answers only.
All right.
Are you ready? Okay. What's your favorite pastry to eat?
Milfoy.
What's the most underrated ingredient?
Chocolate. Is it underrated though? Anyway.
One book or mentor that changed your thinking.
Pierre May.
A hospitality trend that you're excited about.
Single concept shops.
A lesson from failure you're grateful for.
A lesson from failure that I'm grateful for. Hire an accountant.
What's the weirdest customer request you've ever said yes to?
There was someone who had like an aversion to the color orange. They just didn't want anything orange. It wasn't because they were allergic. They just didn't want to eat something orange.
And what pastry trend needs to retire already?
Pastry trend needs to retire. That's a tough one. That's put me on the spot.
You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. This is a communications mind coming out right now. Doesn't want to chew his own words. It's okay. You don't have to answer it. I know you have something in your subconscious.
There's definitely something in my subconscious for sure.
I'll let you DM it to me.
That.
That's it. Well, Phil, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. And, I wish you nothing but the best for your future travels. And like I said, if you ever need anything, we're always here for you. But we're proud of you. We're really proud of you, man.
Thank you. It's been really nice to be back in Sydney. It's my favorite place in the world.
Give us some lead time next time you're back here so we can actually take you out for a meal or take you out some falafel maybe.
Yeah. Always down for falafel.
Awesome. All right, man.
You.
Bless you. Thank you
so much. Thanks, everyone.